Hey, James, you there?
I am.
Hey, just a question on the recording. When we go to an executive session, that's no longer recorded, right?
It will not be recorded. If it's by default record, I will stop it. And I'm not taking notes either. So
Well, so I think there's a need to take notes on each project as we score it. And a final score. I don't know if you're prepared for that or not. I think that as we go in, while those notes can be something that is not in the record, I do think it may be useful for us to have the scoring, especially as we go into prioritization.
okay. All right.
Is that possible?
Yeah, it is for sure.
Because I was prepared. If I need to, I can do that as well.
No. Jill from my office will be on, and I'll be able to do it. Jill will be able to do it. We'll capture it. CDMP is a team member of ours, and they were taking notes, but I told Denise not to worry about it, but we'll take care of it.
Okay.
There we go, Jill. Jill, I guess it called you the Galaxy S9, and then it named you. Did you have to change it?
I just changed it, yeah.
Okay. All right, Jill, I was talking with Scott briefly just a second ago, and we'll want to take notes during the executive session regarding scoring. So scoring determination. So that's what you're talking about, right, Scott? Just really kind of the score we land on.
The final score, I think it would be good to have kind of the notes of where we're scoring that's leading up to the final score for each project in the event that we need to go back and modify it.
Okay.
And then ultimately, all of that material will no longer be in the record and once we finalize the scores.
Okay.
Which is, the full list after we've seen everything. Hey, Catherine.
Hello.
Catherine.
Hi.
Hey, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all had a good day.
It's been good. Just got a warning of our rain chances for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Seems like we may have some
Not
flooding.
yet. I'll take it though.
Yeah.
It needs to be mowed, so if it's raining, that means I cannot fulfill that obligation
Do which,
for now.
Mark?
I can't fulfill my obligation to mow the yard if it's raining. Just watch it grow instead.
I did it Sunday, and I'm paying the consequences because it was a lot of dust and dirt, and yeah, it's killing me. I guess we don't have any members of the public that want to catch a little bit of exciting TV before we go to executive.
Yeah, not sure. We're still waiting on members of POSAC. I used to be one of those folks who used to listen in on, planning and zoning commission meetings in the city of Austin, and good way to fall asleep. I'm sure
Well,
that we provide that same opportunity here.
Yeah, well, not the city of Austin, but I've been to enough city council meetings and planning and zonings and parks board meetings and whatever for a lifetime, or for a few lifetimes. So
I'm sure.
unless it's something that's very critical, I don't tune in.
We've got an iPhone. I'm not sure who that is, if that's one of our members.
Hey, it's me, Lisa. Can you see me?
Yeah. Hey, Lisa.
Okay.
Thanks for joining.
Hey, y'all. Hey, I just sent you a text, Scott. Do you guys have by any chance of the Presa Grande PIF scoring sheet handy? Are we gonna go over that again or not?
I think that we already did rescore it. We can discuss that in the executive session.
We just couldn't find it and didn't know if you guys have it someplace where it's accessible.
It looks like Scott Tonhave maybe didn't get the,
Yeah, I'm communicating with him right now.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I think, most times when you've got a meeting invite, it includes the Zoom link, and the Zoom links have been in the agendas sometimes, which it is in this case. Maybe we can get Alexandra, I think, is in charge of the invites. Maybe she can update those invites to include the Zoom link in them. I know I've had that same issue where I'm struggling last minute to find it, but hey, Scott, thanks for joining.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Scott.
So I'm pretty sure Lori's going to join us. I did not hear from Blanca or Carolyn that they would not join us, although I know they're both pretty busy today. We tried to connect. There's Lori. Hey, Lori.
So we do have a quorum. If folks are joining late, hopefully they're going to join before the executive session. I'm not sure how to see when someone joins the regular Zoom if we're in a breakout.
It can be difficult. I'm not that technically savvy with Zoom, but I recall in the past that you have to be watching the main Zoom in order to make sure someone is able to join the breakout.
Okay. So we're missing Catherine and Blanca right now.
Carolyn and Blanca.
Is that Carolyn? Sorry. Yeah.
Yep. I'm just texting them.
I texted with Blanca earlier and I didn't get a response. So
I think they can probably text you, Scott, if they get here late and need you.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, given that it's 6 minutes in, why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Scott Way, and this is the Hays County Parks and Open Space Commission meeting number 13. Along with me, we've got Lisa Pruitt, Scott Tomhave, Lori Olson, and Catherine Nichols, all members of the commission. And with that, I guess we will see if there's any public comment. If you have a public comment, please raise your hand via the hand raising for Zoom or speak up.
So Scott, Jill and Tim and a niece are all on my team. So it doesn't appear that there's any members of the public at this point. And then
Okay.
Jenny obviously is with, consulting with the county.
Got it. Thanks. So James, why don't we move on to item 3A, a update on the RHCP and how that should impact our scoring process.
Let me just make a brief comment, and then I think I'll hand it over to Jenny and chime in where appropriate. But we did get some questions from you all in the past and had promised we would double back. I think, we've already done an RHCP 101 on a prior occasion. And so we assume that generally about the Regional Habitat Conservation Plan. Happy to answer any questions you might have. I think the main thing that would concern the POSAC right now would be how to incorporate that facet of a project into your scoring criteria. We talked about including as match, but then that leaves the open question. Well, okay, well, what is it? What can we at an early stage declare as match if we want to do that? And I think it's probably smart to try to account for it in some way. So Jenny and Alexandra and I sat down and figured out how we think you could be provided a number that is reliable, maybe a little conservative in its estimate of the return to the county, but something that you could plug and play with. So Jenny has a few slides I think she's going to show and kind of give you a case in point example of a single project that might it's just meant to be an example. It's not a project that we're trying to really drill down to tonight, but something that you could look at. So Jenny, if you're there, I'll be quiet.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. James, do you have those slides where you can put them up?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Awesome.
All right, you seeing them now?
Yes. Okay, so as Mark said, we met earlier last week and kind of went through and kind of looked at a whole bunch of different elements and figured out, kind of the best way in which to get y'all the information that is would be the most helpful without burying everybody down in the biological aspects of it. And so we'll work through using the Old Glory Ranch River Tract, which is one of the proposed projects as an example. So it's 646 acres approximately. And what we don't know at this time that could affect the warbler mitigation value is building envelopes, future roads, utilities. This example is located adjacent to already protected land, so that affects potential mitigation credit generation. It is a project that they are far enough in it that we do know that it has long-term occupancy by the species, so that weighs fairly heavily with respect to what is considered habitat versus what isn't. And so in the information that they submitted, there was approximately 535 acres of warbler habitat identified. And then James, if you'll switch to the next slide here. And so what we've done is we take that amount and all of the publicly available data, as well as looking at the various models, where we're going to review that. And we're looking for key things: known occupancy, whether it's or not it's modeled by the various habitat models, Duarte being the most recent, and that's the one that the HCP currently uses as being identified by the model as habitat. And then the requirements for preserve establishments, and that goes into, does it meet those elements in terms for mitigation generation. This example is a standalone that would, because it has over 500 acres of confirmed occupied habitat, be able to meet those minimum preserve standards. There may be some projects I know that are smaller in acreage, like 300 or a couple of 100 acres, that they have identified benefits for golden cheek warblers. However, if they are not adjacent to other lands that get us a minimum of 500 acres for the HCP, then we cannot utilize those for future credit generation. So those are all the things that we are looking at, as well as any additional information that has been submitted into the PIF, whether they've had a habitat assessment or surveys, or the type of acquisition that they're proposing, and what any potential reserved rights, terms and conditions, and other aspects that could otherwise affect the overall credit value. And as Mark said, because there are several factors for each of these different projects where we just don't know at the time, that could have some effect on the overall mitigation establishment. We're kind of trying to take a little bit of more of a conservative approach to it to get to where the overall match contribution is more a more realistic versus going off, this is the max number or total acreage that could generate value. And James, if you'll switch to the next slide. So what we do is we take in all of that information, and here's kind of what that refined data looks like. And this is information that was, for this one, since it had an assessment done already and a delineation, we were able to utilize that. So we've got 535 acres of habitat. That's basically when you apply the different credit components to it, that gives us a max of about 500 credits that could be generated off the site as it is currently. That would, assume that there's no future roads, no building envelopes, which we know that for most conservation easements, those are going to be things that are negotiated. And so since there are those unknowns at the time, we are looking at, we take into account those potential impacts. And so we're taking the maximum potential credit value and we're multiplying that by 70%. And so for the, where we have here, could this example generate 3.75 million max in credit value for a match? we take that 70% of that, and that's essentially the scoring criteria, or that goes into this scoring criteria for the contribution for the POSAC match. And, you know, for in this example, it would be 2.625 million.
So a few things, Jenny, if you don't mind. One is that if the property is less than 500 acres, or the easement proposed would be less than 500 acres on the property, alternatively, then the county may see value still in acquiring that easement, going forward with the project, particularly if we think that we can eventually secure and bank a conservation easement adjacent to it, contiguous to it, because we can build
Correct.
of it. But I don't think we would count it as match presently as you're scoring it, because we just couldn't count it as such at the time that the application is being filed. So that was
Correct. Correct.
yeah.
So
Super helpful, thank you.
are you guys going to be providing us this analysis for each property that is potentially golden cheek warbler mitigation land?
Yes.
Okay. And so with this right here, 2.6 million in potential credit value, Mark, is it your assumption that we would consider all of that as potential match? Or do we discount that at all?
That is the discounted number.
That's the 70% of the
Correct.
3.75. Got it.
Yes, and I think the way we had it planned out is that, you know, Jenny and Alexandra are dialed in enough on these projects that they can take the PIFs that have been submitted. She can look at Duarte if there's not more specific information provided on the project, and then she can simply give you all the number back. We wanted you to be able to kind of look behind the curtain here and see what she's doing and how she's doing it. But I think ultimately, Alexandra and Jenny would simply give you the match number and say, this is what it came out to based on the data we have. And again, you know, Jenny mentioned it earlier, but I'm working on one right now without getting into a lot of detail on something being negotiated. You know, factors such as building envelopes, ranch roads, utilities, all of those things can really impact potentially in a big way the number of credits you would get, which is why we think just taking a 0.7 multiple to the hard data that we have is probably wise, because you're going to lose some with every building envelope that landowner wants to hold back and reserve. You're going to lose some acreage.
That makes sense.
Yeah, again, ranch roads and utilities too. So
With almost all of these projects, you all still have to do a lot of negotiation to finalize the terms of a conservation easement, in some cases land acquisition, in others, you know, the other matching dollars. And so you guys can, you know, take our ultimate score, and if there's a significant change, either tell the court that, you know, that score is somewhat, you know, might be somewhat different had these new facts been known. And so the court can then take that into consideration. If they want, can send it back to us for additional deliberation based on those changes.
yeah, you bet. The last thing I think that's important to note is that the 2.625 million is not present day money. That's credit, mitigation credits that would be acquired throughout Hayes County over time. So, you know, we need that bank right now. We need to reestablish that bank. We've had so much development and so little opportunity prior to this bond that we're definitely on the need to acquire side of things, but it will take time for those mitigation credits to go away, for them to be conveyed to developers and others in the community that need them.
So is 7,500, that's the current value of credits, right? And then
Correct.
do we pro forma a future value of what those are worth, you know, over time?
it would take court action overall to determine whether or not the fees would be raised in terms of what the mitigation credit is. So the challenge with that is, even though land value prices are, kind of going through the roof right now, we've had, I would say for as much growth, we've had limited voluntary participation in the plan, because even at 7,500 a credit, which is about equivalent to what other regional HCPs sell their credits for too, if we go too much higher, the market's not going to bear it. And at this time, we would likely get less participation in the program. So the court has the ability to change it in the future, but they could also decide to decrease the credit price in the future just as easily as they could decide to increase it.
There are a couple of, go ahead, Scott, sorry.
I was just going to say, why is it because the developers aren't looking, currently they're not buying land that has habitat that they need to offset with these credits, or what do you think the underlying cause of that is, reasons why they're not participating?
I think one, it's choice for appetite for risk. And the county, the HCP is voluntary. That's the biggest thing. ESA compliance technically is not voluntary, but the county has no enforcement mechanism from which you can go out to any of these projects that come through and say, hey, you're clearing habitat. You have to stop and enroll in the HCP. The only entity that has that legal authority is Fish and Wildlife Service. So the HCP is more focused on the education and outreach and trying to work with those projects to educate them on their potential mitigation needs or obligations. But still, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to that project proponent to submit an application, enroll, and mitigate in the program.
There are a couple of banks that can market their credits outside of their jurisdictions they're currently slightly more competitive than us price-wise per acre. So that has kept us at 7,500 and has kept us from going up from there, even though land values, if you were basing it just on land values in Hays County and what we need to support the program, we would have gone up a long time ago. Yeah, and I would say that, on the enforcement side, Fish, I think, is largely complaint driven, and obviously something that's going to be, is a larger project that's really, thumbing the nose at the regulation is probably going to get some attention, and a smaller project or something that's out on ranch land is probably going to get less attention, and sort of ebbs and flows because of that.
So if they're not participating in the plan currently, do we sell outside of the jurisdiction currently?
No, we do not.
So that's a court deal, right?
It's the plan that was approved by Fish. There are a couple of plans, and Jenny, I don't know I have not learned the story behind this, but Burnett, for instance, their mitigation credits can be conveyed pretty widely, and I don't know why that was in their plan and not ours, but maybe you know.
So with what's different is we can't authorize any mitigation except for within the county limits. We're bound by that permit area, and it's limited to Hays County. Mitigation banks, when they're set up, they have a service area. We are not beholden to only servicing Hays County projects. If projects go through and consult with U.S. Fish and Wildlife directly, and Hays County is identified as a mitigation opportunity, or a partnership where, they could either provide funding or purchase credits. As long as the county has those credits available for purchase or an opportunity for them to contribute funding towards a future acquisition, then there is the ability for the plan to do that. But the HCP doesn't, because it is an HCP and not a true mitigation bank. We don't have a separate banking instrument that allows us to market credits outside of it. Otherwise, other than a project going through Fish and Wildlife Service directly first, we can't market credits to Comal County for lands within Hayes County, for example. It's just a different mechanism, different process.
So it sounds like from a mitigation credit value, it should be using a discount value method of that. I mean, I know you're cutting the 30% off for certain things or whatever, but it sounds like a DCR is or the discounted value is a better way to approach the actual value of the credit, given the time value of money. Is that appropriate statement or not?
Yeah, I think you all could decide how you want to. I mean, I think that putting the match there with an asterisk by it, that, this is RHCP, anticipated RHCP revenue. We would know that that's over time. I didn't bother to try to apply a formula to consider time money ratio, but if you all want to take that on, you're welcome to. I figured I would avoid that.
But I just think it's appropriate given the amount here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
2.6 million on this particular project is probably worth, I don't know what the value we'd apply to it, but I know what I would apply to a business.
Yeah.
Well,
It's pretty significant, right?
But I
So-
would say one thing too, before kind of running down that rabbit hole as well, there's what is not being considered here is also all of the costs that the county and the HCP assumes when we take on another preserve. And, and Mark and Alex and we kind of talked through a lot of this, as we were trying to figure out the best way to provide y'all the information. But, when the county takes down a preserve land, it's different than from when the county is going, if they just assume an easement or do a fee simple acquisition for any one of these other type of just open space preservation projects. There is perpetual management and monitoring that has to be done. And those are, hard dollars as well as funding and endowment that's required by Fish and Wildlife Service as well. So, there are additional costs that are not reflected that in a way kind of offset the potential down the road growth value that match would otherwise, have a potential to generate for future dollars.
And did I understand you, Jenny, correctly in saying that the value of the credits is likely to grow in the future as well?
Well, and no, the opposite.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
If you're referencing the 7,500 per acre,
Yeah.
That has been the going price now for 13 years.
Okay,
And
that's pretty set.
I don't foresee it changing anytime soon.
How much is Travis County? It's just out of curiosity.
Their system is different, but it's 5,500 an acre. And they, for those who aren't very familiar with it, they work off of the old archaic 25 plus year tax parcel maps that were done. They don't have a way to update that information. So it's done by parcel and whether it was identified as known confirmed at the time or unconfirmed. And they also have karst fees that are tied to it as well that are $1,000 an acre and a couple of other fees. So it's right equivalent. Comal County is, I think, 7,500. And they're both Travis and Comal are 1-to-1 ratio for mitigation, just like Hayes County is. Bear County is equivalently 8,000 an acre. So it's a, you know, 500 plus $500 difference in there, but it's shown as 4,000 a credit because they have a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio. So it's 8,000 per acre. Williamson County has a scalable fee where your smaller acreage impacts, I think, are like 12,000 an acre. But when you get into like the 10 to 20, and then like 25 to like 100, and then 100 plus, it drops down from there on the overall cost. So and that was something that the court implemented several years ago from that standpoint. But all of that's contingent on the third party bank that supplies Williamson County with their credits having credits available for that plan's use, which has got into a little bit of challenges in the past on not having credits when the HCP needed it.
So which counties are mandatory participation? Are there any?
None. Yeah, there's state law actually prohibits counties from requiring ESA compliance during development and permit approval processes.
Well, and they always have the option to go to fish directly. Although the idea of these local RHCPs is to be more streamlined, more efficient, and to roll the dollars back into additional conservation locally as these banks grow and are sold. So, I mean, I think that there are a lot of motivating reasons for people to participate locally, but they always have the option to go to fish. The smaller projects won't because it's not worth their while, but larger ones can.
Okay. So bottom line for everyone, it sounds to me like you guys will give us a number that we can consider as match. If we want to treat it any differently, we can discuss that amongst the members of the commission. But we'll be getting a number from you guys for those projects that would have mitigation land as a component of the project. Any other additional questions?
No, I just want to thanks, Jenny. This is helpful. Appreciate y'all doing that.
No problem at all. And if y'all have any other questions or think of anything else, Alex and I are here to help.
So I have a question about calling something match that we don't currently have available dollars to use when we're scoring projects. So we will revisit those after we get a dollar amount to see if it makes a difference in our score.
Yeah, I feel like we need to generally discuss it as a whether or not it even would apply. I mean, like I was saying, I mean, using a discounted value and it's a what if scenario and it's not a mandatory program. It's like, we can't put a value on something that we don't know exists. The market's only there if people are willing to participate. And it sounds like, I mean, I don't know. What's the participation rate? Do we have a percentage on that
So we have had a significant amount of participation over the last year and a half. So much so that we are about to have a waiting list start for projects that are waiting to mitigate while we get additional preserves established. So, and that's been in a large part because, and this is a lot thanks to Alex, has really stepped up the education and outreach component. And now that project, developers and other projects coming in are being educated about, hey, these are potential issues. And hey, we have a local mechanism. A lot of what used to be, oh my God, the golden cheek warbler is scary. I'm going to cut down all my trees so I don't have to deal with it, is not necessarily an issue anymore. When the project, yes, it does. It still happens. But a lot of these projects, particularly the bigger master plan communities, they know, and they're not even going to try to skirt around not participating because of the the
PR
public,
issue.
yeah, a PR issue. And, by educating the smaller projects along with, letting, a lot of it is just HCP has been around. A lot of project proponents didn't realize that. And so we're to a point now, like I said, where we are literally after we process and finish this next application that came through, we have we can only probably process one more small project. And then anything else coming in is going to be waiting to mitigate until we get the next preserve established. And I anticipate that to continue to be the trend moving forward. One, from a PR standpoint, and two, because of the processes that the county has now implemented in terms of educating the developers and project proponents coming in, that everybody is being informed of potential ESA needs or mitigation components for their projects.
Well, I think that's really cool, Jenny. Thanks for sharing that. And when I'm asking these questions, I'm not asking as a naysayer. I mean, I've worked with you in the past on this particular issue, but I think it would be helpful that the POSAC have a demonstrable exhibit that describes exactly what you just said, as far as like master plan communities are participating. Here's the rate. Here's what it's looking like currently. Here's where a bank is now. And here's where we project we should be, based on the growth of the county and the amount of homes that are taking up ranch land or habitat in this case, so that it's something that this POSAC can stand on and say, this is why we're doing it this way.
Yeah, well, so I mean, we can use the Anthem development as an example. They wanted to enroll, so they've already gone through the habitat assessment process. They've mitigated the first phase completely and enrolled their first phase. They've paid their mitigation fees for the second, but the county had to break it out. We weren't able to allow them to enroll the entire project in, and even though they would have paid all the fees at once, we couldn't do that because we didn't have the mitigation credits available to do it.
And so I would using that as example is awesome. The only caveat I'd say to that, one, it's a conservation project or a conservation community, right?
Right.
And then second of all, how much was that? How much could the county have taken in in those purchases? And then I would use another example of some of these other master plan communities that may not be so conservation oriented. Quite frankly, that's the majority of the development that's in the county is.
Right. And so another example I can provide for POSAC is, so the LCRA is upgrading all of their transmission lines through along 3 of their different lines in the San Marcos area. They originally came to enroll in the HCP and utilize the Hays County HCP for enrollment, versus even though they have their own HCP. However, we did not have enough credits to facilitate their mitigation need at this time. And thus they had to utilize one of their changed circumstances conditions in their HCP and utilize that take provision versus participating directly through the county. And so now we're working with them to come up with the appropriate funding that they can pay the county for the offsets that they need through their own HCP, because we couldn't. So in that instance, because we didn't have the credits available with a county, the program missed out on about $1.4 million just for that one project.
Those are great examples. I mean, I said, I'd use those, put those in a case study, just a 1-pager that we can refer back to and point people to why we made decisions to either include or discount or whatever we're planning to do at which point. I mean, I'm not going to be the person that knows what that discount value should be. You've discounted at 30% already, which I think is pretty appropriate and reasonable. But if we had those case studies of where the county has missed out on opportunities to sell these credits, it's going to be a lot bigger ability to defend it, not only for us as a POSAC in making these decisions or recommendations rather, but also for the court, to stand on. So But I would encourage you to use, a developer that isn't quite, Anthem, because Anthem is pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Thank
And
you.
I just want to also point on the scoring issue. I mean, I just looked at we did Old Glory. And so, I mean, the difference on scoring is just the match question, and it's a 2-point, even if we included that, what they're suggesting as to include as a possible match, it only changes the score by 2 points total. So it's not going to have a huge impact on the scoring. Might adjust it 1 or 2 points, that's about it.
Cool. Thanks, Lori.
All right, any other questions, comments, suggestions? Okay, well, hearing none. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jenny. This was helpful, and we'll be looking for that those numbers on each of the projects that are claiming potential mitigation credits. So with that, James, I think we're moving on to our breakout session. Yes, we're moving to executive session to begin scoring some of the projects that have been presented. And so we'll go into breakout Zooms, or a breakout Zoom. And I suppose you'll be inviting us into those. Is that how it works?
One Zoom, or you want to do?
One Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. I want to be clear. Make sure you're not talking about breaking out per type of project.
Yeah, I said
okay.
that. I said that incorrectly.
Okay. And it looks like there's not any members from the public. It's just our team and then POSAC, Hayes County.
Just a housekeeping issue. I don't need to be there, or Jenny doesn't need to be there. What y'all's preference? I have none. I'll take guidance from you all. I can wait in the waiting room.
I don't care if you're in there, Mark, because I think we'll have a lot of questions for you probably, but I don't think anyone else who doesn't need to be there probably should not be in there. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Well, I'll have members of my team if that's all right.
Yeah, I believe they're taking notes.
Yeah. And we will not be recording. Okay, so Mark's in, Jenny in, out.
You're welcome. Welcome to participate if you want.
Okay. All right. Just looking for some guidance.
It can't hurt to have Jenny unless she's got other stuff to do. I mean, she's the expert on the conservation stuff, so.
I'm happy to stay to help and answer any questions if necessary.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm creating the room and I think everybody's going in. All right.
James, do you want me in that room to take notes, or do you prefer we don't record anything?
So I actually had a conversation with Scott way early on, and he thought it'd be good to actually take some notes.
Okay,
So
I can do that.
Okay. All right. Appreciate
All right.
that.
Uh-huh.